just yet. Don't cash in that last bet, 'cause I hit harder when I'm tired. Yeah, I'm a fighter. Oh, no one can keep me down. They didn't know, but they know now. That I'm a fighter.
Happy Thursday, Patriots. Welcome to a special edition of the America First Patriot Hour. Tonight, I will be joined by David Gordon from the Virginia Project. I would say something and somebody who's absolutely would be in demand to speak to us Patriots when we're 11 days away from the biggest election in my lifetime. Probably in your lifetime. So we'll get a lay of the land about this wonderful PAC and all that they're doing, what David's working on. We'll walk through the numbers in Virginia. We'll talk a little bit about early voting, what the numbers mean, what election day, and just, some of the legal stuff that's transpiring behind the scenes. So a lot of things taking place. A lot of things are going to happen. But tonight will be a great show, and I'm not even going to waste any time. So let's bring David in. Let me get him pulled up here. And make sure. David, can you hear me and can you see me?
I can hear you just fine.
Excellent. So welcome to the America First Patriot Hour. Thank you for... you said earlier you don't do many of these type of interviews, but with 11 days to go, I thought it was great to reach out to somebody like you. I'm absolutely, what's the word I'm looking for? Very excited about what you guys have done, because Virginia, everyone thinks it's a blue state because Biden won it by 10 points in 2020, but we'll talk a little bit about all that. So thank you for being a part, and thank you for joining the show tonight.
Thank you for inviting me, and shout out to all the Patriots in the audience.
So let's start right there. You guys, my Patriots, so as you can see, chat is up, both X, Rumble, and YouTube. So if you guys are out there and you have questions for David, go ahead and get in. And as we can already see, some people, Jack Cat Mountain, 3 American flags, and data analyst says, hey, let's go. So let's get this thing going. So David, let's start off. Give me a lay of the land of the Virginia Project. How did it come about? And then just make everyone understand a little bit about it and what all it's trying to accomplish.
Okay. I lived in Virginia for about a decade, and over that period of time, I got to witness kind of from the ground level what was going on with the Virginia Republican Party. The Republican Party of Virginia had a bad stretch of about a dozen years or so, where its performance continually degraded, its internal unity spun out of control, and it was not an effective organization. And the end point of not addressing those problems for a dozen years, in November 2019, it arrived with a Democrat trifecta. The Democrats had been winning statewide elections for quite some time, so that didn't surprise anybody. But nobody in the Republican Party expected to lose all control of the legislature, too. And that really shocked everyone. There was a myth that the Republican Party in Virginia was being consigned to permanent minority status due to demographic change. They believe that minority groups, immigrant groups coming into Virginia would have Virginia be a permanently blue state. But that was a myth. The reality was that the Republican Party of Virginia wasn't taking care of business, that when these new groups came into the state, the Democrats were all over them, and the Republicans ignored them. And that's why the immigrant groups and new demographics were corresponding to Democrat gains, because we simply weren't making a play for them. So the Virginia Project came into being for the purpose of improving the operational capabilities of the Republican Party of Virginia. We wanted everybody to get back to fundamentals, to do the groundwork, the boring, dry grunt work that needs to be done in order to have an effective political party. And it took some time to convince people that this was the right way to go. People had many other ideas, but none of them really panned out under inspection. So when the final endpoint was reached, the Virginia Project idea was the only thing left standing. So eventually, after a lot of persistence, I convinced the leadership in the Republican Party of Virginia to go along with it, because nobody had any better ideas. And as you see, it has worked magnificently. The Republican Party of Virginia is, off the mat. It's back up and fighting. It's still a long way from where it could be. I'd say we're maybe 20-25% along the road that I'd like to travel. But even having done only that much, it's now brought what was a D+10 state back into dead heat purple status. And we've had 3 consecutive elections that's confirmed that.
So, was this something that came about pretty quickly, or was this like years of planning on your part and other people's?
I came up with it after 5 days of analyzing why the Republican Party had lost in 2019.
So, 5 days of analyzing. So, you got to love when you see something that bad and that broken, and you find patriots who are like, okay, well, can't cry over spilled milk now. We better roll up our sleeves and figure out how do we stop it before 2024. So, with all that,
Excuse me, I have a little monster here.
that's okay. What's the name of the kitty?
This is the infamous Alexis Rose.
Alexis Rose. So we brought up pets, and this is a family show, and as you can tell, I love cats. As you can tell, I'm Leo the lion. So Alexis just wanted to come in and say hi. I have a French bulldog named Charles Foster and 3 other Jack Russells, so very familiar with lots of puppies. So how old's Alexis?
Well, she is an old cat now. She's over 19 years old.
Wow.
She's about the equivalent human age of about 94. So she's starting to show her age, unfortunately. But she's hanging in there. I still got some time.
She looks better than Biden, so I give her kudos for that. So 5 days, your analysis took. How many people are in this with you? Just approximate number.
Directly, or I mean,
I know
you're
your pack
operation.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, I know it's a pack, and you rely on the people, but how many people are there directly helping you, like create this and run it and work it?
Well, it depends on the year. This is actually our off year, so I don't have any full-time staff with me on the off year. During the state cycles, it's a lot different. I bring on people to take management responsibility of various roles. We organize ad hoc as is needed for advantage.
But that's a heck of a testament to you, though. I mean, because I know the states are the important 2022, but look at this election. Look at all that's going into this election. And for Governor Youngkin to really take hold of this and be a big part of this with you guys and really help push it, because that tells me that we have a governor that knows what's happening in his state and he understands what's at risk as we move towards November 5th. So I see that Trump, and I seen one of your posts earlier where you would come out and said, well, I was hoping we would get Trump or Musk here one more time. And then today, it looks like we did get some confirmation that Laura Lee Trump was going to come to Virginia, and there is going to be one more big rally there in Virginia. So have you heard about that?
Yeah, I just heard about it earlier today. We're unfortunately suffering the consequences of everybody having written off Republicans in Virginia because of that decade plus of futility and decline. However, we are establishing a very different tone. We are establishing a team ethic and unity of purpose, and getting everybody on the same page in terms of professionalizing the party and just operating at a higher level than the kind of amateur hour that things used to be at.
So I've said from about 2.5 months ago, because of what we talked about prior, I just could not see that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden was going to take down the greatest country in the world. 248 years since 1776. I thought to myself, these are some corrupt, compromised people, and the establishment on the Rhino side is bad. And you got just a tornado. You've got like a perfect storm, because DC politics, with all the dark money and the parties being the uniparty, I rail against Rhino. So the two things that I love most is America First, pushing Trump, pushing America First people, and then going after rhinos. But I think they're almost as bad as the liberals, because they've caused so much damage. You see McConnell come out today, and he's, of course, bad-mouthing Trump out the door, and he's got an approval rating of 7% with the Republican Party. So, I mean, David, we got to change so much, but I'm looking at some of your numbers, and I watched the polls, and Mark Mitchell's a friend. He's been on the show twice, from Rasmussen, and I was looking at your numbers earlier, and I've printed out some of your stuff. Right now, you said you have it 306 to 196. She wants to be heard.
She does. She loves to join my conversations. Give me one moment.
Yeah, grab her. So David is making sure that Miss Alexis is part of this conversation, and I think she's important, because I am Leo the Lion, and we need all the cats we can get. So,
well, there's an origin story behind all this in which she actually plays a significant role, but that's a story for another time.
For another day.
So she's our mascot.
Oh, nice, excellent. Well, I'm all for lions, and I'm all for cats. So I seen where you had. I came out and said 2.5 months ago that Trump would exceed 300 electoral college, and he'll win the popular vote. Well, of course, 2 months ago, I was looked at kind of like a fool, and people were like, "Well, what's your basis behind that? What is causing you to think that?" And I'm like, common sense. Things are gonna change. Look what they've done for 4 years. Look at January 6th. Look at all the fake insurrection. Look at all the things that's taken place. At some point, the Republican people, who we call them the silent majority for a reason, right, David? It's a lot of them stay silent. You're not seeing much of that anymore, because you're seeing early voting come out in massive numbers. So I seen them earlier where you had it right now 306 to 196. Maybe that was somebody's.
That's about where I think things are at right now, yeah.
And you have her ceiling at about what, 244?
I mean, that was a ballpark estimate, but yeah, I don't really see her winning much of the battlegrounds, what's considered currently the battlegrounds, and I think she's got a potential to drop not only Virginia but also New Hampshire, Minnesota, and potentially New Mexico as well. Maybe even Maine.
Yeah, no, there's so many close. It would be so great to see Trump pick off those states. And you see like what's happening in Nevada. And Nevada's going completely red. So it's a great thing to see. But that was part of my thinking when I went into this was, there is going to be a full come around. It's a 180-degree turn. And I look now at you guys, and earlier I seen something that reported 59% Dems, 40.93% GOP in early voting. Why is that significant?
It's significant because usually the split is 65-35. And for us to be hitting 41-42 is historically unprecedented. And it shows an enthusiasm level that we haven't seen in a very long time.
So great enthusiasm, a lot of different things changing on the ground. Your PAC is doing a fantastic job. Governor Youngkin's involved. I see, though, they're trying some more legal stuff to try to remove the from the voter. What was this that I'd seen earlier today? And I see
The DOJ suit.
Yeah, the DOJ. And I seen your Dr. Ben Braddock had posted something.
Okay, what Braddock had been posting about was forensics from 2020, and, and
She's
the
fine.
thing is that after 2020, I looked around and said, whose job is it? Whose responsibility is it to look out for election integrity for Republicans in Virginia? And there was nobody who stepped up to take responsibility. So while election integrity was not in our original mission statement, it was absolutely necessary to have clean and fair elections for us to fulfill the mission of bringing the Republican Party back to parity. So we took the lead on it. We did a very thorough investigation of what the weaknesses were, the potential exploits. We estimated order of magnitude and prioritized what we needed to prioritize. The very first thing that needed to be done was to clean the voter rolls. And that's what every state needs to do. Your voter rolls are dirty if you haven't cleaned them like Virginia has. So you need to clean them up. And it's a little late now if you haven't gotten it done, but put it on the agenda for next year.
So what would you say, what was the number that you can estimate that cleaned up in your guys' voter rolls? 60?
In the first year, in 2021, so the Virginia project doesn't directly
Right.
do the actions that clean the voter rolls, but
Yeah.
we informed the local Republican committees as to what they needed to do. Now, in Virginia, the voter rolls cleanup needs to be executed on the local level. So basically, we did a massive crowdsourcing through the Republican committees in each county. We taught how to follow the law and exercise their rights. And they did a fantastic job. And the first year, we cleaned about 500,000 names off the voter rolls.
Wow.
I think since then, we've probably added another 150,000 or so. And now we have some of the cleanest voter rolls in the nation.
500,000. And you guys are averaging about what?
The-
4.3, 4.4 million votes?
Yeah, approximately 4.5 million votes, a little less.
So that just goes to show you how
Yes,
bad.
that can have a game changer impact to have all those extra names on the voter rolls. Now, this is why it's important to clean up the voter rolls, because all those extra names, they create something that I call the fake voter pool. All right, if somebody's going to do fraud on a mass scale, they need that fake voter pool, because those are the registered voters who aren't voting for themselves, that people committing fraud will vote on behalf of. Okay. Now, when you
Okay.
dry up that fake voter pool, then the fraudsters have nothing to work with. So we suck the gas out of their tank, and they're running on empty.
Hence why they're trying to push this new thing through.
Well, the DOJ suit just goes to show how incredibly effective we were at cleaning up the voter rolls. I mean, the DOJ suit's entirely meritless. The law that Youngkin is following was signed by Democrat governor and current Senator Tim Kaine, and it was cleared by the DOJ at the time. Excuse me one second. Sweetheart.
She has got lots to say tonight. But that's good. You know, all patriots should be talking.
Yeah, she's a very vocal girl. Okay, so this law was cleared by the DOJ when Tim Kaine asked them, to check it out, and they were like, "Yeah, it's fine." Okay, so the issue with these names is that they're not subject to the 90-day period that the DOJ is claiming. And the reason why they're not is because to register someone who is not eligible is an error. We are not talking about somebody who was a eligible voter and then moved to inactive. Now, if you look at Alabama, that's what they did, and that's why they're losing. But that's not what happened in Virginia. In Virginia, there was a rigorous process with 3 checks to make sure that we weren't removing actually eligible voters. And these checks started with the self-attestation of these individuals that they were not U.S. citizens. They were then sent a letter, to inform them that they were going to be removed because they weren't eligible. And they had the opportunity to respond and challenge. And, they declined to do so. So these names that have been removed should never have been registered in the first place. Now, if any of them have become citizens since, they had the opportunity to register until the 15th, and they can still do same-day registration.
It's amazing what happens. Yeah, it's just amazing what happens when somebody actually takes a look at the data and takes a look at what are some of the big ticket items that are taking place that's allowing the fraud, the cheating. And I would think that at this point, there's other PACs or other states that are probably trying to reach out to you guys or reach out to Virginia. And I would hope mimic or copy what it is you guys are trying to do.
There's somebody in Wisconsin who's been doing some very similar things. They've been leveraging their rights under law to force Wisconsin to clean its system up. And we actually raised a number of Virginia lawyers to work on lawsuits in Wisconsin. So hopefully we helped. But unfortunately, our success has been drowned out by very loud people who've dominated the election integrity scene, who haven't had their act together, who don't know what they're doing, but they get a lot of attention and they get a lot of money, and they're not effective. And it's been a major obstacle to spreading the successful Virginia model of election integrity around the country. In recent months, we've seen a lot more interest, but it's kind of late in the game. This stuff should have been started 4 years ago when we started.
Right. So when we talked online about why Election Day is so important and what we may be able to find out relatively early, November 5th. You had touched on a few things. Could you kind of bring everyone up to speed why Virginia, the early vote, and what we could tell if Virginia numbers are coming in the way we want or hope?
Well, I mean, Virginia early vote, there's a number of aspects that's really positive for us. One, okay, so Virginia doesn't have party registration, so you have to actually model, which party each individual voter is from. And you can do that fairly accurately with vote history and commercial data. So, the first thing that's very positive for us is we're getting a much larger share of the early vote, much larger. We've cut down the 30-point Democrat advantage to less than 20. So that's a 10 plus point swing. If you're looking at L2 data, then we cut it down by like 19. So there's a little bit of chicken bones because of no registration. But we know for a fact that we have uh, cut into the Democrat early vote advantage in a big, big way. The next thing that's extremely positive for us is that the propensity of the voters that are going Republican is much, much lower than the propensity of the voters that are going Democrat. So Democrats are getting mostly their 4 of 4 voters, the voters who voted in all 4 of the last elections. Now we have an election every year, so we're talking 2020, 21, 22, 23.
Mm-hmm.
On the 0 of 4, in other words, new voters that are being brought into the system, we're blowing them out of the water at greater than 2-to-1 rate relative to the Democrats. And our 1 of 4 is also at a much higher rate. We are bringing new voters into the system, and Democrats are not.
So if you couple that with what is Virginia's usually voting day? What's the turnout there? I would imagine that's probably higher Republican than Democrat. By like what percentage would you say?
On election day,
Yeah.
yeah, election day is always Republican dominated. The percentage, I don't know offhand exactly what the percentage is. I think it's around 54%, if I recall.
Okay.
Um, but Republicans have a strong advantage on election day.
So when you add up those components you just talked about, how do you see this from the numbers that you're seeing right now and what we're doing and the low propensity voters and get it down to 19% on the early vote and then the 54, 55%? And I would imagine this could possibly be the highest year of November 5th of same day voting across the country just because of what's happening in America. So how do you see this playing out for Virginia, David, if I can ask you to look into your crystal ball?
Well, I see Republicans continuing to perform strongly in the early vote. We've actually been gaining as a percentage over time, which is unprecedented. That's another extremely positive sign for us. And we have all the enthusiasm, and a lot of Democrat voters are disaffected and demoralized. 'Cause let me tell you, every time somebody goes to the grocery store, pays an electric bill, fills their gas tank, they become a little bit more Republican. And that's a tidal force that the Democrats have no way to counter because it's their policies that have been driving it.
And every time she speaks or they talk about things, there is no turn the page. There is nothing new. There is probably something even worse than what we've witnessed over the last 4 years because she's not going to run anything. I think that's everybody has come to that understanding by just watching her. She can't even do well on CNN. So it's just it's a fascinating thing to watch this cycle. I don't even know. Ideology.
She's a bubblehead. Yeah, the thing, her problem is that she's got zero charisma. She can't explain herself. She can't make a positive case for, electing her. So that's why their campaign is like 100% negative because they have nothing positive to offer. And the only way they can win is to destroy the opponent. So that's why they're running with that.
And that's my
She's
biggest
terrible
fear.
candidate.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
yeah, it's a disgrace to the Democrats that was the best that they could offer. An absolute disgrace.
well, they do all this ideology type politics, and they think that, they just go about everything the wrong way. And you look at what's happening in America, people have real concerns. I do. We're supposed to leave this place better for our children. We're supposed to have America as the greatest country in the world. And right now, we operate like we're a third world country in a lot of things that we're doing. We're printing money like there's no tomorrow, which is going to lead to bankruptcy or a recession. If she gets in, you're talking about potential World War III, which they would then probably deploy the draft as a military guy, because a lot of patriotism is not there anymore. You don't have a lot of people volunteering. My son's in the military. He's a sergeant first class right now in the Army. So it's fascinating to watch all of this, 2 assassination attempts on Trump, and that still continues to be my biggest fear is him. And their rhetoric has been ratcheted up to the point where they call him Hitler and they call him a fascist. And, what do they think that's going to drive?
They pull the Hitler card out every single election. And, we used to have something called Godwin's Law, where, the first person to mention Nazis or Hitler loses the argument. And I think Godwin's Law is coming back. I think people realize that once you resort to that kind of rhetoric, you have nothing. You've lost, and now you're just trying to emotionally manipulate people. And after enough years of this kind of manipulation, people have had it. People are used to it, and it's extremely disrespectful, and people are reacting appropriately to being disrespected.
Yeah, that's, again, it was a perfect storm for what happened in 2020. I think that storm is coming back now on the reverse. And this is what you're saying. And it had to play out that way. So
Well, we saw a preview in 2021 in Virginia. The election of Youngkin, Sears, and Miyares, was very much a reaction to extreme and uncompromising Democrat policies. Now, in the current year, it's about economy and immigration. In 2021, it was about schools and crime. But the same feeling is there, the same umbrage at the almost sadistic nature of the Democrat policies and their contempt and indifference towards the suffering that they inflict on regular people. People have had it, and that's why there's all this enthusiasm. Everybody on the Republican side now expects Trump is going to win, but that's not going to have anybody stay home, because we don't just want to win. We want to absolutely crush these people to a degree that they never try this again.
And I think that is such an important part. And that's a great point, because I keep saying we want to beat them into oblivion. We want to make a historical mark so that when people go back and they look at 2020 and they look at all the things that transpired from 2020 until November 5th, I want it to blast a crater-sized hole in history so that people say, here's what happened, and hopefully we learn a whole bunch about all the shenanigans and all the bad stuff that took place. Because I think that's important. I think the American people are fed up. They want to be able to see what's transpiring, what's happening, who's doing what. Was there really an insurrection? Was it not an insurrection? How much did the feds play? What are all these things that kind of go into what took place in 2020? And I think your point is right, dab smack bullseye, because people want to understand why it took place, and then they want to know that it's fixed. People are going to want to see people go to prison. People are going to want to see people pay for some of the stuff that they did, because you disenfranchised how many millions of Americans in 2020?
All of us. We were all disenfranchised. Even those who voluntarily voted Democrat, they were disenfranchised because the system itself could not produce a legitimate result. So their vote was meaningless because the voting didn't really determine the outcome.
Yeah,
It
you
was
had the government.
that determined the outcome.
Exactly right. You had the government controlling it, and that's not what we stand for. It's a government by the people, for the people, not we exist as taxpayers to protect them and make them money. It's all been flipped bass backwards, and that has to be changed. And I think you're seeing that play out. That's why the enthusiasm is where it's at today. Do you have a little bit of time, David, to answer some of the chat questions that the people are asking? Because they're really hitting in chat pretty hard.
Sure. Throw them at me.
All right. So, all right. Let me get to where I can see. I live in the Winchester area, the fastest growing metro area in the state. A lot of Nova transplants. What can local GOP do to prevent Loudon type shenanigans? I seen you post a little bit about that today, so it's a good question.
Sorry, in the Richmond area?
He says in the Loudon.
Oh,
Is it?
okay. So he wants to know how they can prevent Loudon from becoming Fairfax.
Yes.
Well, I mean, you have to organize and you have to fight. Now, the current chairman of the Loudon Committee is Scott Pio. He's become a little bit of a controversial figure, but if you look at the actual numbers of his performance, the Loudon Committee is much, much stronger. I remember the previous chairman was not very responsive nor ambitious. That has significantly changed. The committee is raising a lot more money, and it's way more active than it used to be. Now, Loudon was actually one of the examples of the dysfunction of the Republican Party when I arrived on scene in late 2019. We found that in the Algonquin Magisterial District, now magisterial districts are subdivisions of counties, for those who don't know. In the Algonquin Magisterial District was one of the most competitive in the state. There are 11 precincts in that district, and at the end of 2019, there was one of those precincts had a precinct captain. The other 10 were vacant. All right. These are basic line positions. These are your, sergeants that they were missing. The forces of the Republican Party of Virginia simply weren't staffed to their intended capacity. And staffing up the Republican Party of Virginia was one of the very first things we did, and it had an absolutely magnificent effect. It supercharged everything, because every time you get a new precinct captain, you have somebody else autonomously increasing the Republican share and working to perform the operations that parties need to perform in that precinct. So within a year, Algonquin precinct had 11 captains. The one captain that was there took over the magisterial district chairman from a less aggressive person who had been there, and now we are very, very competitive there, whereas previously we were conceding the field. It was insane.
So that's a great answer, and that's a great question, Sean. So thanks for that question. Let me see if I can find a couple more on here. So question everything. There are plenty of independents who think the Democrats have lost their mind. Got to tap into that group. How does that? How, are you able to measure that on your end? Because we see what the Republican and the Democrat numbers are, but I guess the question is going to be, what does the independent vote do? And I would imagine with RFK and some of the stuff that's happened, we're going to probably see a pretty good size margin come our way from an independent standpoint.
Okay, so there's a certain kind of voter. They voted for Joe Biden in 2020, and then they voted for Glenn Youngkin in 2021. And whether these people, were independents or some of them were definitely Democrats, I know. Some of them might have been soft Republicans. But what characterizes this group is that their lives were thrown into total chaos by COVID shutdowns, and we had some very severe policies from Governor Northam, and then the school shutdowns. And the school shutdowns had a particularly bad effect in Northern Virginia because Northern Virginia is full of two-earner families who send their kids to school during the day, and they don't have any other good options for having their kids supervised while the parents are at work. So when the schools closed, even if the parents, didn't have their jobs disrupted, which many did, they were still, their lives were completely disrupted by all this, and the Democrats had just this dripping contempt for them. So this set of Biden-Youngkin voters, I think, has permanently shifted towards the Republican side, and we saw that confirmed in the 2022 and 23 elections. In 23, we won every state legislative district up through Biden plus 9.
Wow.
So that's 9 of Biden's 10 points that I believe have permanently shifted to Republicans in Virginia. And it's why I believed, since long before anybody noticed how competitive Virginia actually is, that we were already purple and we were ready to compete to bring Virginia home for the Republican nominee.
So that's great numbers, and that's a great explanation of what the independents, because it's the silent majority, and it talks a little bit about. I always go back to who really voted. What was the real percentages in 2020 for Biden? And that's something that I hope one day we actually get to understand.
We'll never know. We cannot know. And the reason why is because we had a central absentee precinct processing. We had a process that destroyed the local precinct data. So a central absentee precinct is where all the early votes and mail-ins in a particular county are counted. And normally, historically, this is 1% of the vote that's counted there. So, it wasn't that important to know which local precincts these votes were being cast from. However, in 2020, 60% of the vote went through the central absentee precincts, and we had no idea where these votes were coming from. It was a huge problem, and it was a priority item for our election integrity program, and it ended up being solved by each precinct now print its own individualized ballot. So you can tell from what kind of ballot it is, which local precinct it came from, even when it's being processed through central absentee. So now we have the local precinct data. If anybody's going to try anything funny, they can't do it on anything larger than a precinct scale, whereas they could previously do it on a county scale. And when you're talking about a county like Fairfax County, you're talking about 100,000 plus votes coming from who knows where.
60% when it's close to 1%. That's just.
Yeah, absentees used to be a rare thing. So 1%, nobody cared that we were missing some data because it didn't affect anything. But when it's 60%, the data is vital to establishing legitimacy of the outcomes.
That's well, it just goes to show you, Democrats are many things, but they're smart enough to understand how to put a lot of things in place to help tie towards whatever their mission is. I don't care how corrupt or evil it is. Do you have time
they're
for
relentless and they don't know boundaries.
No.
And Republicans need to understand that we're dealing with a an opponent that will break any law if they think they can get away with it, and they do.
Yeah, it's 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 amazing. So, a couple more questions. Do you have any concerns about the evil that the deep state is capable of when Trump wins? So, before you answer that, let me just say for the record, I think the toughest days we're going to live through are going to be the 76 days after November 5th to January 21st in Inauguration Day. And I think that is going to be a really tough period. What's your thoughts on that, David?
Well, I think they're crazy and dangerous, and we should expect anything. So, yeah, I agree with you on that. They will be lashing out in rage, and we need to be prepared for that. In particular, state governors need to prepare for this, and they need to have the National Guard ready to suppress any Democrat riots, which I expect to happen. And the reason why I expect them to happen is because the left wing media has been completely misleading Democrats as to where things actually stand. If you watch MSNBC, you'd think Kamala Harris was sailing to a victory, but if you look at any real world numbers, you know that she's done. She has no chance.
So I think that's why I gravitated to you because the common sense, along with the factual reporting and the data, and there's good people out there. There's really good pollsters. There's a lot of propagandists. There's a lot of people that are out there. I call it the state-run media. They're voice boxes for the liberals. That's basically what they're doing. Question Everything says, any idea what part of the state had the messiest voter rolls?
Loudoun County, they were at 115%. We had a delegate assist us, Delegate Dave LaRock. He was a real champion for election integrity. He ran for a state Senate seat and lost in the primary, so we've lost him from the legislature. But while he was a delegate, he was a real asset. And what we had done is we had his House of Delegates district, approximately 70, 80,000 voters, run through an NCOA check, the National Change of Address. And we confirmed that 14% of the voters in that district alone had moved out, and they were still on the rolls. That corresponded to the earlier Judicial Watch report that showed Loudoun at 115%. We had a few other large counties at 110, 105. I think we had about 25 counties that were over 100, and another maybe 20 or so that were impossibly high in the 90% plus. Above 90% voter registration, you're pretty much guaranteed that you've got names that shouldn't be there. Because some people simply don't want to register. Their vote is a refusal to participate, and that will of the voter to refuse to participate, that's their right, and it must be honored in a free and fair election.
Oh, I agree. It's just amazing. You keep hearing numbers, and it's important to take a look back and understand what transpired because you can't fix stuff moving forward if we don't do that. But it's just amazing. So let's see here. Is Virginia one of the affected states involved with the Iranian hack to add overseas voter ballots? I don't know if you would know that or not, David.
I don't believe so. We haven't seen any unusual spikes in voter registrations, and Virginia is a particularly hard state to pull that off on because Virginia requires the full Social Security number. You can't get away with registering with just the last four. So we have a much stronger level of validation than other states do.
So a couple more questions, and then I'll let you get back to Alexis Rose because she's being kind of nice right now. So I haven't hit her with something that's going to cause her to scream at me yet. What other states, if any, had reached out to David? So David had said Wisconsin, and it's some attorneys that are also assisting Wisconsin. Which, if you guys know Wisconsin, Wisconsin is an extremely important state. We've decreased the ballot boxes from thousands down to 500. So there's been a lot of stuff that's happened there. So David, Lisa just asked, is there any other states? And you had said Wisconsin. Is there anybody else that has reached out to you?
I had some reach out from Minnesota, but it was too late to act for this cycle, unfortunately. I did have quite a bit of contact with people in Arizona. A couple of years ago, they had disputes in their 2022 election. Abe Hamadeh took some of my advice, although I wish he had been even more aggressive in pursuing his legal options. I mean, his case still isn't resolved. It's quite extraordinary. That case should have had top priority in the courts, and it's still hanging out there. Yeah, I wish I had found more cooperative parties in Arizona who would be more serious about adopting our method to clean things up.
That was an uphill
Yeah,
battle.
yeah, maybe next time.
I've been, I've been in some Twitter battles lately with Stephen Richer, and now they're taking 2 weeks to count the votes. It'll take to count the ballots, and I'm like,
Yeah, that's pretty much an announcement that he plans to cheat.
oh yeah,
What Arizona should do is flood the zone with observers. There should be a legal hotline that all those observers have, on speed dial. If anything outside of normal process happens, call the lawyer, have the lawyer come in and shut it down and put it in front of a court and let the court decide. Do not let anything outside of normal legal process occur, and don't let any bad votes be counted. Now, there's one thing I really want to emphasize. Once you let a vote be counted, whether it's a good one or a bad one, it's going to stay there forever. It's almost impossible to get rid of it. That was one of the toughest lessons I learned in the initial investigation. We had a case in the 7th District, a really sketchy, magic flash drive appeared that put CIA candidate Abigail Spanberger back into the House. And I really wanted to see that challenged, but the fact of the law is once it's actually counted, you can't get it out. So everything in our program was designed to prevent a ineligible or fraudulent vote from being counted in the first place, and that was a key to our success.
this is, and you see, so what you're saying ties exactly into what they're trying, which is they have courts and propagandist liberal judges. Let's just call it what it is. They are uh, saying that you can't sue or you can't audit or you can't look at stuff that's bad. You can have people from other states come in and vote. It's amazing, and this is why I get so angry with the Republicans, because just look at what you were able to do in Virginia.
And we did it under a Democrat trifecta, I should point out. So anybody who says, "Oh, the Democrats are in control, we can't do anything," I don't buy it. You can do something. You have rights that you can exercise under law, and that's how we did it. We exercised our rights under law. We forced the state of Virginia to follow its own laws, and we were successful.
David, you're going to become my go-to election integrity guy, because it's
I really only know Virginia. I can tell you top to bottom what's going on in Virginia, but the thing about election integrity is it's extremely state specific because every state runs its own elections and has
right.
state specific laws on every detail. And this stuff can be extremely detailed, and it's dry and boring. It's not sexy at all. All right. If anything's like, if anybody is chasing something that sounds like real sexy, they're probably misleading you. The most important stuff is like accounting and auditing. It's extremely dry stuff.
Well, it's dry, but it's the difference between a constitutional republic and Marxist tyranny. So it's may not be
It
sexy,
is, yeah.
but you know what? It's important. So anything else that I have not maybe asked you or touched on that you want to get out there? I know you're doing that. You're trying to get Vindeman from getting elected. What is that in District 7?
Yeah, okay. So our best pickup opportunity, and it's looking like a very, very good one, is in the 7th District of Virginia. We have a Green Beret, Derek Anderson, a solid guy, up against the odious Eugene Vindman. Now, Vindman is most proud of his accomplishment in prosecuting servicemen for refusing the jab. That's what he brags about. That's the kind of tyrant that the Democrats nominated. Now we have an excellent opportunity to shut this down and to take a district that's currently owned by the Democrats. If we do, it'll also be a huge embarrassment for Abigail Spanberger, who'll be the Democrat nominee for governor next year. So it'll help our chances of retaining the governor's seat. And we're running a fundraiser tonight specifically for the 7th District. If you go to our website, click donate, anything we get tonight is going into the 7th District. We're going to send it to the committees for get out the vote efforts. And thanks to Virginia's extremely lax campaign finance laws, we can accept unlimited personal and corporate donations. So if there's a whale out there who wants to make sure that Republicans win the 7th District, drop it on me. We can accept anything you want to give.
Please, so make sure you guys are doing that. So if you're watching the show and we were already over thousands on X watching, please donate, help. I was familiar with Derek's campaign because I had interviewed on this show Cameron Hamilton. And another great guy. And
yeah, Cameron's
so there's a lot of there's a lot of good bench strength and there's a lot of good people there in Virginia. And I love Winsome too. I think she's an amazing lady. So we have a lot going on in Virginia. Things are looking positive. Things are going good for the Virginia project, and you can see that David is making a tremendous impact on Virginia. And some of this stuff I will cut up tomorrow and get out to everybody in clips. So David, I'll make sure I copy you on stuff because some of the stuff that you've explained tonight is stuff that we really need to drill down on. And it's stuff that all these states should be looking at. And if we had a opposition party, a true Republican party, maybe 2020 wouldn't have happened. Instead of a bunch of people like Mike Pence and Mitch McConnell and Kevin McCarthy and all the people that we had. It just sometimes, you said it best, you did it in a liberal-controlled, a Democrat-controlled state. So if you can do it in Virginia, we can do it anywhere.
Mm-hmm. We sure can.
So anything else, David, you want to touch on? As you can see below, you can follow David at Project Virginia on X, and his X is blowing up. I seen it earlier. So your 28 days looked really impressive. And follow this man. I've been following him. I've kind of reached out to try to get him on the show, and he has been kind enough to come join us. But this is an America First Patriot hour. We've reached our hour. And David, if there's anything else you want to bring to our attention, all you got to do is let me know. And go ahead, take the floor. If there's anything else you want to mention.
Okay. My last word is that we have set Virginia up to be the kill shot against the deep state cheat machine. They cannot cheat us. We have a very effective dragnet, all the election integrity work as well or better than anybody else in the country. If we take Virginia for Trump, The cheat ends right then and there because we'll post our returns first. And if Republicans win Virginia, there's no narrative that can cover the cheat. None. So this is how important winning Virginia is. We have a very, very good shot at it, and it's getting better every day. So if we can get your support to goose the get out the vote, we can end the national nightmare of forever counting on election night. It'll be over. Everybody can have a good night's sleep and know that they're not going to be cheated out of another election.
That is a great final message. And guys, that's why earlier we had talked about look at the early votes that are coming in. Look at all the momentum and the enthusiasm. And then watch November 5th. There's key things to look at. There's key states. And David just explained the best. If Virginia goes our way, it's the rest of your night, you can kind of sit back and enjoy a little bit and not be so stressed on the 3 o'clock in the morning ballot dumps and all the other stuff that may take place. So, David, it's been a pleasure having you on, my friend. I hope you come back. If you have anything that you ever want to share, all you got to do is hit me up on Twitter or on X, and I will put you on. So if you need to do something with fundraising, or you need to talk about the PAC, or you need to talk about something specific on a drill down, just let the show know, because my show exists for America First Patriots, especially the ones that are out there doing it.
I really appreciate that you've had me on and offered me this platform, and thank you to everyone in the audience for taking the time to listen to what I've had to say.
David, please tell Alexis we said goodnight, and thank her for all her input. So from one lion to another, Kat, tell her I appreciate it very much, and I do appreciate you. Thank you, and I'll be hitting you up on X just to see how things are looking.
Looking forward to it.
All right, David. Thank you very much.
All right. Have a good night.
You too. So, my friends, David Gordon from the Virginia Project. What a very educated, intelligent man who took it upon himself to get out there and work very hard. Work hard for his state, work hard for his party, not let Democrat controlled. You know, that's the stuff that we hear sometimes. We hear, well, it's Democrat controlled. And I'm like, okay, so does that mean we just lose everything? And that's the stuff that drives me crazy about rhinos. And that's why I rail against them so bad, is because he's living proof of why that doesn't work. One man, one person with a bunch of people behind him. In Virginia, you guys, I'm applauding the hell out of you guys for all the hard work and what you guys are doing. And you guys are going to change the election. And that was a question I had asked him about Jon Kahn, and he said that he was behind, but that the momentum was coming, and that we would have to see if he can make up enough because Tim Kaine and his standing. Why, I don't know any Democrat, and I thought Jon Kahn had the best. He had the best commercial or the best marketing ad I'd ever seen, and I've invited Hung to come on the show also. And I just love his story. I think he's a great guy. And he's somebody you're going to be hearing a lot about. I hope we're hearing about him in 2024. So you guys have been fantastic on here tonight. And I really appreciate chat. And as you guys see, I try to get people's questions in front of these people. So thank you for the questions. And I hope that David was able to answer them appropriately and adequately. But my friends, we've got some more stuff coming up on the America First Patriot Hour. We got Rachel Alexander from the Arizona Sun-Times going to tell us about the shenanigans with Stephen Richer and Cartel Katie Hobbs and the stuff that they're doing in Arizona. We're going to have her on Monday. I got Elizabeth Helgeline. Hopefully she'll be coming on next week also from Nevada, and Nevada is just going crazy right now. And we're also inviting some other people. So as always, we continue to reach out. We put America first because this is our country. It's not for the illegals. It's not for the cheaters. It's not for the people that just want to use taxpayers and use us as ATMs. I'm sick of all that. This is our time. We're 11 days out. It's going to be October 25th tomorrow for the biggest election in our lifetime. It's an important election. We have a lot going on, and we have a lot happening. But if you guys follow the America First Patriot Hour and you follow me, please keep a lookout. Follow David Gordon, the Virginia Project, at Project Virginia, and make sure you follow me at Leo the Lion 1964, and we will be telling you guys more about other great patriots, especially in these last 11 days and what's happening. So my friends, as always, stand tall, be accountable. You guys are making a difference. You're making it happen. The enthusiasm of red-blooded Americans that are out there busting their butt. You're not listening to the fear porn. You're not listening to all the crap the Democrats are trying to spew. We've learned. They're dangerous and they're evil, but we've learned. Let's make sure we keep that enthusiasm going. And as always, my friends, make sure you guys roar loud enough that they can hear you, as my friend RV at the Beach said tonight. So have a great night, and I'll see you guys Monday with Rachel Alexander on the America First Patriot Hour.